Okay, this is kind of a fun presentation I put together. It's all of the eerie locations throughout Pennsylvania. And I got the idea from a TV show that was on about, I don't know, 25 years ago called Eerie, Pennsylvania. I used to watch that with my kids when they were small. So that's really where I got the idea. I want to start with the Pittsburgh side, Western PA. Everything that's on here, you can basically look up. You know, you can find all this information. The western side of the state at one point was going to be named West Sylvania. It was supposed to be the 14th state. And it was going to be West Virginia and the Pittsburgh area. There's the legend of the Tommy Knockers, which is elves, and that's at coal miners, where these elves would either warn or play tricks on miners. In 1907, Pittsburgh area had its first spontaneous human combustion. The guy's name was Albert Hauck. If you remember last year, we had a speaker on spontaneous human combustion, and I asked them if any of these people were involved in the occult, because there's the ability to burst people into flames and burst objects into flames. He said he only had one case where the person was into the occult. There's the legend in Pittsburgh of the Green Man. This was in Beaver Falls in 1919. This is Ray Robinson. He actually electrocuted himself on a trolley line cable, turned his face green, he lost an arm, disfigured his face, exploded his eyes and nose. He was 9 years old at the time. Homer City has a smokestack that's 1,216 feet high. It's 34 feet short of the Empire State Building. I'm not really sure how they cleaned it. Of course, we have Route 666 in the Allegheny National Forest. The Conneaut Hotel at Conneaut Lake in 1943 had a fire, and people claim now that they see a boy, a butcher, and a bride who had died in the fire. This is a pretty famous case with Blue Book. I think the TV series will cover this one. Prescow Island case in July 31st of 1966. It's actually one of the few UFO and Bigfoot cases. What you see on the left there, the trooper or the park police, whoever that is, there's a couple of arrows. There's actually fur on that tree where you see the arrows. Where you see on the right with the guy's finger pointing, there was some sort of gel in the sand. And when Project Blue Book, the Air Force showed up, they took the casts that were made by the state police, they confiscated those, and they actually kicked sand into all of these footprints. And what this case involved was 5 people in a car drove over from New York. They got stuck in the sand on the beach. 2 of them went for help. 3 stayed in the car. There were UFO sightings in the area, and they claimed that a Bigfoot showed up and actually rattled the car and shook the car. There was a police officer involved in this. And in 2016, when we were doing the Eerie conference in Lake Erie, we had about 15 witnesses from this case actually show up. So I'm kind of hoping it'll be one that's covered in the TV show with Project Blue Book. Of course, every river, every lake has a monster. So the Pittsburgh Three Rivers, they have this 20-foot ogua is what it's called. It's some sort of a turtle monster with 2 heads and a tail, and it goes back to Native American folklore in the 1700s. Lake Erie has Bessie, that goes to 1960. You have the Kecksburg UFO crash, a number of different theories on that. Was it a satellite? Was it a spy satellite? UFO, meteor, Cosmos 19. I had hooked up with an engineer. We did a pretty good analysis of this case, and every aspect of it actually matched up to a GE Mark II spy satellite that we were launching out of the South Pacific over Russia. And I personally, I think that's what it was. Everything that happened actually matched up to what would happen. But one of the interesting things, if you remember Night of the Living Dead, 1968, in the movie it talks about a virus being brought back from space on a satellite that was returning from ours. They got the idea from the Kecksburg crash in 1965, and that's a little known fact. That's what George Romero based that on. Right here in Bucks County, we had a case in 2008, 11 years ago, that really got the chapter going and these conferences going. But this was Popular Mechanics. They talked about what areas have the most UFO sightings. And what showed up for metropolitan areas, obviously Los Angeles, but in less populated counties, it was Westmoreland County, where I live, was first, and Bucks County came in fifth. And I would say if you updated that, Bucks County probably is the most now of any county, because we had in 1 year over 300 cases. There's the Night of the Living Dead, which is out on the Pittsburgh side again. Evans City is where they filmed it, and it's kind of the zombie capital. You know, Pittsburgh's considered the zombie capital. You'd think they would do the Walking Dead show or someone. You'd think they'd do one in Pittsburgh, you know, instead of a California version and an Atlanta version. But then they had, 10 years later, in the Monroeville Mall, which is near me, they did Dawn of the Dead, and they actually, you know, this is coming up in 2 weeks over at the Monroeville Mall, and they do a Walking Dead, a zombie conference type stuff. They close the mall down, people dress up, you can walk through the mall. I remember one year we did our Pittsburgh conference, and we were doing pretty good, and then one conference we barely got 100 people, and it turns out they were doing the zombie walk at the mall, and they had 1,200 people, and just killed the attendance. There's a famous case in '73 over in Uniontown, October 25th. This is another one involving a UFO and a Bigfoot, and the people that lived in this house, they came home, they had their hunting rifles, they claimed there was a UFO that was seen and a Bigfoot. I think it was 2 Bigfoot, and they shot at it. They claimed they hit it, then the Bigfoot just disappeared. And then where the UFO was, there was a glowing area. This is actually featured in the MUFON Journal. I went back and looked it up in '73 or '74 maybe, when they actually printed it. And the state trooper, they said that the area was glowing. And when Stan Gordon showed up with his investigators, they went inside the area, and one of the investigators fell down, actually started howling, and they had to pull him out from that area. So it's one of the better cases involving a Bigfoot and UFO. If you remember '73, it was a large UFO wave too across the country. Fred Saluga and I were working with Travel Channel trying to get a TV show done where they would talk about this whole Laurel Highlands area and the large number of UFOs, Bigfoot ghost cases that you have in the area, but they didn't get the funding for that. They actually got a show going on coming up called Ghosts of Morgantown or something in Louisiana. That's what they decided to do. In Irwin is the Legend of the Dog Man, which is it's basically a werewolf is what a dog man is. It's about 7 feet tall. He was actually seen walking across Route 30, and it was reported. In Greensburg at the Westmoreland County Courthouse, in the jail, there used to be some hangings where they would commit suicide. So in 1984, the 911 dispatchers, they were looking at the screen monitors, they saw someone hanging, and they ran down to the area, and there was nobody there, but they said it was very cold in that area, so it was kind of a ghostly kind of apparition that took place. This one in 2001, I actually heard this. At the time I had a pair of Dobermans. We were out on the deck. I heard some sort of a bird screeching. I didn't know if it was a hawk, an eagle, whatever it was. I didn't see anything, but I heard it. My 2 dogs, about 85, 90 pounds, they went into the corner and just cuddled up, and they wanted to get back into the house right by the door. So the next day in the Tribune Review, there were reports of a very large bird that was seen flying over Route 119 and Route 30. So we heard it, and you could always trust animal reactions. My dogs, they would want to get in the house. They just were hiding in the corner. They were afraid of something. This here is called the Ship Hotel on Route 30 in Bedford. I drove past this in maybe around the year 2000 or so. I had to go to Harrisburg all the time, so I said, let me take Route 30, just one, because I moved here in '97. And I saw this place. It was an abandoned hotel. It sits high up on a cliff on Route 30, and you can see, I think it's 3 states that you can see from there. The elevation's 2,464 feet. So I said, you know what, a couple of months later, I said, I'm going to drive past it. There was a real estate sign there. This would be a cool place to have as a second home. And it was all glass windows looking out. I don't know how you clean those windows from the outside because it was like a 2,000-foot drop. But I went back to take a look, and it had burned down in October of 2001, probably to collect the insurance. It would have been such a cool house to convert. You know, it was just sitting there empty for years. But I had mentioned on that, I didn't mention it, but there are a lot of famous people that stayed in there. Thomas Edison, etc., Greta Garbo, Joan Crawford had all went there. This is May of 2013 in Somerset County, an actual Bigfoot report that was filed with the police. In Hollidaysburg, over by Altoona, 1835, you have the U.S. Hotel. And people that stay there, every hotel has a story. You know, they have a screaming woman that's missing a foot and a man chasing her with an axe. And people claim that they see the ghost of this. You would think that they wouldn't get business from being haunted. But every single hotel, every lake, they have their haunted stories. Hillview Manor in Newcastle. This one also, you can do tours of it now. And people talk about suicides, ghosts, and haunted children that are seen there. In Pittsburgh from 1988 to 2006, Bob Cranmer was the county commissioner in Allegheny County in Pittsburgh. He's the guy that got the funding for all the stadiums, the convention center. The whole time he was county commissioner, he had a demonic attack in his house that was very severe. What he said looked like blood dripping from the walls. He wore a cross. He said the cross would just bend up on its own. His son had committed suicide also, but his son had served in Afghanistan and it was having a lot of issues. But he got the local diocese there in Pittsburgh involved, and they finally drove it out. And what they found when they did the history was there was a burial ground in the front lawn, and they actually went and they found the bones there and everything. So, but it was a pretty intense haunting that he went through, a demonic infestation, and it lasted for a few years while he was county commissioner. For that's 18 years that it went on. He wrote this book. He spoke at our Pittsburgh conference, and Destination America did an episode on it. Here's a Bigfoot sightings map. You can see a lot of it is Western PA and Ohio. Here's a case in July of 2009 near Jumonville. It's funny, when I moved here and I heard about this case, I said, oh, they got Jumanji here too, just like the movie, Jumanjiville. So this residential area, they were driving and they saw this very hairy creature. In a lot of Bigfoot cases, they have a regular skin face. This one had hair all over its face. It actually leaped over the car, kind of scratched the hood. They said it was very tall and muscular. The funny thing is, all of every state has all these same stories. So there's something common to it and something going on. This is my house, and I gave 2 presentations here in 14 and 15 talking about the poltergeist activity in my house, etc. And be honest, it's not gone. I was talking to Father Kolker over there, and we talked years ago, and it comes and it goes, but it was intense in 2014 to 2016. Something showed up in my house, and I'm convinced it was demonic. I know it was. And it's one of the reasons when, I've gotten away from the UFO field and I got away from the alien abduction. I prefer what I used to do, which was looking at the UFO report, like Project Blue Book and Hynek, and try to determine what the report says and what it could be. Not where it's from, is it alien, is it from space, etc. I don't want to talk about the alien abduction. I believe the alien abduction is a demonic infestation and possession in some cases, but it comes and goes. I mean, it was just noises last week, constant slow pounding on the wall. I don't seem to be able to get rid of this thing. But it was very intense in 2014 to 15 and 16. It lasted 22 months, actually. which I would consider an attack. And I wrote a book on it called The String Theory of the Unexplained, and I have a lecture out there you can look up on my website, and I talk about the whole genre of exorcism and demonology and what happened. And it's something that's really followed me since 1989 when we moved to Oklahoma, and New Jersey was a haunted house. And many witnesses, many people experienced stuff. I just ran for county commissioner last month, May 21st. I was in second place. Everybody said, you're in, you're definitely in. And, you talk about conspiracy stuff, right? So I did robocalls on Thursday, and then Sunday we did it again. I said, run them, after church, like 3 to 6, before it ended around dinner time. And the guy somehow mismanaged it, and it ran till 1:30 in the morning, and I couldn't get him. And I said to myself, what's the chances? Everybody, even the Republican Party called me and said, we're going to meet with you Wednesday morning after the election, right? And here it is, just destroyed my campaign. So I was trying to become, Bill Burns is an elected official right now as an auditor locally here, and I wanted to be really the only other UFO person that has ever been elected. Nobody has ever been elected to an office. And they made fun of this and a bunch of other stuff, but I was in second place, and I really thought I was going to win the election, but it didn't work out. So I don't know. I don't know if that was an accident, mismanagement, or somebody intervened on that and didn't want me to win. So let's take a look at your side of the state here, the Philly side. You have the Pennsylvania Dutch have what they call witch dancing, which is creating crop circles. If you remember the movie Signs in Bucks County, you had the crop circles, you had the cornfield, and we actually had that one case in Doylestown. I tell you, when we drove up to the house, I'm looking at it, and I said, the cornfield and everything, it looked like it was straight out of the movie. We had that case in 2008. Lancaster County dates back to 1500. You have the Alber Witch. And what it really is an apple snitch. They call it an Alber Witch, and it's a 4'8", probably a Bigfoot, maybe a teenage Bigfoot, and he steals apples. And they have this legend that goes back to 1500. You're probably familiar with the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. All kinds of oddities and deformities, and it's an interesting place to go to. I would say don't go to it like right after eating lunch, but there's a lot of stuff in there to take a look at. This is the 37-foot tall William Penn statue in Philly. Now people go to look at it from this angle, but he's actually holding something in his hand. So it's become kind of, if you stand on the east side, it's kind of funny looking, but somebody should have thought that one through. But Philadelphia, a lot of older cities have a lot of gargoyles, like all over the cities and stuff, like Notre Dame and, Paris, etc. But Philadelphia has its gargoyles too. And these are some pictures of them. This one here was a book. It's in Delaware County, the Helbron Manor. 1830, there was a fire, killed 7 members of the Murchison family. Then 1864, the Edwards family, there was a rape and a suicide and ghosts, and that burned down in 1987, and they wrote this book, Night Stalks the Mansion. 1910, you have the Scranton Psychic Theater. Travel Channel featured it as one of the 10 most haunted theaters. Philadelphia experiment, obviously Philadelphia. A lot of different stories about this. It was a cloaking device. They were trying to figure out how to get past the German U-boats, and Tesla was involved to somehow make the ship, invisible. And they claimed this electrical field they put around it actually made the ship vanish, reappear in Norfolk, Virginia. Then it came back. A lot of the crew members were missing, fused to the hull. Some went insane. And it's linked to the 1983 Montauk time travel, where there were 2 brothers. They claimed one jumped off the ship. He appeared in 1983 in Montauk, Long Island. So really interesting stuff with this one, and it really goes a lot deeper, like into the Montauk experiments. This is the haunted Valeroy Mansion in Chestnut Hill. 4 people who sat in this chair. Was Napoleon's chair, armchair. They died, And someone also said that a painting was just flung across the room. Hexenkoff Hill, which is here in Bucks County, which means witch's head. Native Americans would exorcise evil spirits and banish them to the woods. And a local witch cursed the neighbors before she was hung, and they say she can be seen wandering around. It's an interesting thing. If you look at other cultures, they always banished the spirit, the evil spirit, their form of exorcism. They banished it to the woods, to the forest, you know, and all over the world. Anywhere, if you look at Europe, that was the practice. So you wonder why, like the Blair Witch and all these other stories, it's scary to be out in the woods at night, especially if you're alone, you know. And I think if there are demonic entities and I could definitely see them in the forest, in the woods. And I actually asked David Paulides that, because he does the missing 411, all the people disappearing in national forests and stuff. I said, how do you know they're not? It's that we've banished these spirits there, and that's what's taking them, you know. But I got this close affinity to angels and demons because of what happened, and I believe that could be true. This here is in Sellersville, Bucks County again. They claim there's albino cannibals there on Haycock Mountain and Ghost Mountain Road, of course. They steal children, they eat them, they swing from trees, they throw rocks at cards, and it's from inbreeding. Kind of reminds me of that episode on X-Files. Remember that one? Home was the name of it, where the mother was under the bed and they slided her out and there's the inbreeding for generations. They probably got the idea from these legends, you know. 1670, you get Ridley Creek Witch in Delaware County. They actually had a trial, and I can't remember the name of it could have been William Penn or somebody was the judge. And the person said, yeah, I'm a witch, and I admit to flying around on a broomstick and being a witch. He didn't know what to do. He released her. So that, lucky he didn't hang her or something, but he released her. This here is in Bucks County, again, Ringing Rock Park. This is not a riverbed. They have all these rocks, and this is found in other areas around the country too. Nobody really knows how these rocks got there, but they actually play concerts on these. The different rocks, you can tap on them and they make different sounds, like instruments. Midnight Mary, Lady of the Lake, was a book that was written. That's in New Hope. This is a girl that was hitchhiking in a pink dress. She died on prom night at the lake. This is the Logan Inn in New Hope. People that stay there say there's a weeping child, a haunted room 6. They see a wet handprint on the wall, doors just open and close. And interesting, Aaron Burr, when he had his duel with Alexander Hamilton in New Jersey in 1804, when he fled New Jersey, he came to the Logan Inn to hide out. This one's weird. This is since 1980 called Toynbee Tiles. And somebody goes around into 28 different cities in North and South America. They actually cut out the blacktop in the road and put this tile in there. And it says Toynbee Idea in Kubrick's 2001, Resurrect Dead on Planet Jupiter. Nobody really knows what that means. But somebody's taking all these trips all around North and South America and putting these tiles out there. Crazy people. This is called Next Bridge in Bucks County. 4 members at 4 different separate instances died in the bridge or crossing the bridge. Radnor Henge, 1682, in Radnor, close by. These were moved when they put Interstate 476 to construction. This is called Skull Tree near the southeast border nearby here. And just so you know, Pennsylvania, Sylvania means forest land. This is Midgetville. It's in southeast Philly near Ridley Park, and these were houses for small people. Similar to what you find in Florida, where after they were done with the carnivals and stuff, they would go there or go there for the winter. This is 1760, the Chester 8-Boy. That location now is where the Philadelphia airport is. And a lot of these like this is just a deformity, let's say. 1777, Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia. The British fired 3,000 cannonballs an hour, and they killed, I can't read what that says, 75% of the patriots that were there, people claim they see a faceless man, a screaming lady, and a lamppost guy lighting the lights at night. Centralia, 1962, a coal fire started there. There used to be 1,200 people in this town. There's only 7 remaining. I think 2 stores that are open. I don't know why. It's a 1,000-degree fire. That's 30 feet underground. All kinds of toxic fumes and smoke. There's 24 million tons of coal there, and they based the movie Silent Hill on this. It's real. I wouldn't suggest going there. You might get asphyxiated. Scranton, 1967, the Lake Titi monster. They claim they see a 14-foot scaly serpent. Carbondale is an interesting case also. Blue Book case that may show up in the TV show. November 10th, 1974. They claim these teenagers said something crashed into the lake, and there were people who saw something coming down. They actually went to the extent that they drained the swamp, they found something, they caught something in a net, they sent divers in, it was too heavy, fell back in. Then they later brought up a lantern and said this is what the light under the water was, that the kids just threw the lantern in there. But there was a lot more to the case. They had some pictures. The chief Doodle, he wouldn't release the pictures. He really tried to cover it up. He told the local press that you're going to go with my story and my story alone. It got to one point where 10,000 people showed up to the town because they all believed there was a UFO there. I don't remember if Hynek showed up, but some Blue Book investigators showed up to take a look at it. Years later, the one teen said that it was all a hoax. They threw the lantern in, and they didn't know how to get out of the story once they reported it as a UFO. But there was neighbors and stuff who claimed, like Kecksburg, that they saw a flatbed and something else was taken away, something else was found in the lake. So there's a lot more to the story, and a lot of these stories are featured in my book, UFOs Over Pennsylvania, which is only on Kindle now. In Somerton is the Byberry Ghost at the state hospital. People claim they hear footsteps, doors opening and closing, a woman with black hair. Satanic rituals were conducted there, and there's a room downstairs it's completely burnt, all 4 walls, ceiling, that they were conducting some sort of satanic rituals there. You have Eastern State Penitentiary, goes back to 1829. You can take haunted tours there. There's the Halloween stuff, and people say they hear footsteps, pacing in the cells, shadows, and wailing sounds. This one, if you follow the Warrens, the West Pittston Smurl Demon from 1974 to 89 was investigated by the Warrens, and they claimed that there were dark shadows. The father was actually sexually assaulted. The dog was taken and thrown against the wall. The chairs were all stacked up on the table. If you saw the movie, remember that scene where all the chairs are stacked up. There were very foul odors, loud bangs, the bed would shake. The daughter was pushed down the stairs, and then actually when they moved, it followed them to the next home. And that was Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated it. Over here in Stroudsburg up north, 1983, was a guy by the name of Don Decker. He was called the Rain Man. He could actually make it rain. When he was in a room, rain would start falling from the ceilings. They said the water would move sideways. He was in a pizzeria. He made it start to rain. This guy was in and out of prison. He would make it rain in the prison cell. And there were guards who said that this stuff actually went on. He would go into a trance and somehow be able to control this. They would, they brought priests and stuff, they put a cross to his skin, it would burn his skin. There were 4 police officers that witnessed this. He would be able to conjure up this rain. They saw him actually levitate. He was thrown across the room. His face was scratched right in front of him. This was an Unsolved Mysteries episode in 1993. Now the interesting thing, later on he's arrested for arson. He was paid to burn down a restaurant in the Poconos. So why didn't he just make it rain? He could put the fire out. That's my book that a lot of this stuff is in. I wrote that in 08. Local case that really got our chapter going in 2008 was over in Bucks County with Denise. You probably remember the case where she saw a triangular UFO. It dropped some metallic sprinkles into a tree. When we went and investigated it, Bob Gardner and myself, he took samples of the leaves, we sent it to 3 different labs, and they came back with boron on the leaves, which interestingly, there's a guy that did like trace elements, what would be the most common. Boron is one of the most common things found in the UFO cases. Another lab tested it and found high heat and radiation just on those leaves, not other leaves in the yard or in front of the house. So interesting case, really got the chapter going, and that was MUFON's first TV show that I was in that with Richard Lang. This is that other case I was talking about that reminded me of signs. This guy lived in a beautiful house, retired contractor. He, a couple of times, and this is again 2008, he saw this huge object just moving very slowly across the sky. And at one point, there was a heat lightning storm. Him and his wife went outside, and they could see the lightning like this, in between the triangular, what he thought were triangular UFOs or craft. He could see through the seams, and Bob Gardner went to the Philly Tower. He got cleared, and he brought the report, and they looked up, and they said at that date, which I think was May of '08, at like 4:23 in the morning, they had a large object with no transponder come on the screen and veer off to the northeast, exactly what was in the guy's report. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's some advanced craft that we have, a military project, but it was some really interesting cases. That was featured in that UFOs Over Earth also, when we did the TV show at the end of 2008 on Discovery. This is the Sharon Hill Mountain Lawn Cemetery. Tammy Terrell is buried there. She died at 25 of a brain tumor. And Jane Mansfield died at 34 of a car accident. She was not decapitated, like the legends say. She was killed in a car accident. And her daughter is that actress Mariska Hargitay from the police dramas. This happened in Reading in September 2016. This 16-year-old high school student playing a prank, standing on the side of the road wearing a clown mask, and somebody actually stabbed him to death. There's some crazy people out there. Let's take a look at Central PA. In Safe Harbor, petroglyphs along the Susquehanna River. There's 300 of these petroglyphs carved in along the side of the river. Susquehanna Woods, they have these cairns, which are rock piles. You've probably seen that in a lot of movies. They don't know if it's European settlers put it there or it goes back to the Susquehannock Indians. But there's thousands of these piles, a lot like the Blair Witch movie, but they're higher. They're not just little piles. They're fairly large piles of rocks in the woods. I tell you, the woods is a creepy place, man. I don't hunt, and I don't camp out. I don't go into the woods. This happened in 1786 and 1810. There was, pumpkin farms, and there was a flood, and these pumpkins just went down the Susquehanna River like cannonballs. They came down the river, and whatever's in their way was being hit by pumpkins. Gettysburg, I've lived here 22 years, never went to Gettysburg, so I'm going in 2 weeks with my son and his wife and grandson. July 1st to the 3rd, 1863. 10,000 soldiers killed in 3 days. A lot of reports of ghosts. They say that you could see the ghost of General Washington leading the Union troops to outflank the Confederates at Little Round Top. There's a lot of fog in the lights. Soldiers can be seen. Cameras malfunctioned. Headless riders on horseback. So a real interesting sight. Probably one of the most haunted places in the country. In Gettysburg, you have the Farnsworth House, where Confederates, the ghosts of Confederate soldiers, actually they harass and harm women that stay there. The Devil's Den Union soldier can be seen, and they claim you find ammo on the ground from that era that's never been used. It's pristine. Gettysburg College, in the basement, there's a report of someone taking the elevator down. When the doors open, it was a hospital war room. And at the Tilly Pierce house at 3 in the morning, you hear these loud booms. And a lot of that type of stuff's been used in different movies. Altoona, you got Raystown Ray, some sort of creature that's in the lake. 1998, the Blair Wolf in Altoona. They claim seeing this 8-foot-tall, brown, very muscular creature with gold-colored eyes, and it would actually then run on all fours. Lady in White of Buckhorn, which is Altoona. This case, newlyweds died there at the lake, and what happens is cars will come by, they see this woman that comes out and stops the car, looks in the window for her husband, and then she just disappears. The John Bonet Tavern in Bedford, employees and guests all claim to experience ghostly activity. This is Gravity Hill. When I first moved here, the investigators at UPS where I was said, "Oh, let me take you over to Bedford and show you Gravity Hill." Definitely gives the appearance that things are rolling uphill. Penn State, a lot of people don't know this. My son went there and graduated, IT degree, and it was an asylum previously, Penn State. The administration building was the asylum, the computer lab was the morgue. People claim the ghost of Mrs. Schwab haunts the auditorium. The ghost of Francis Atherton sits at the window of the old botany building. The first mascot, Old Coley, which is a donkey, can be seen on the old main bell tower. So I think they keep that part of the Penn State history quiet. This is an interesting case. Fred Sluga looked into this one. Todd Sees. It's up in the air whether this was a drug case or it was a UFO case. There's some reports of a UFO in the area. Then Todd Sees up in Northumberland got on his ATV. He went out and he disappeared. And he never came back, and this is August of 2002. Then they brought the search team in looking for him. There was a report of a UFO, and it's strange stuff. They searched, couldn't find him, searched next day, found him in a little bushy area that they said, "We definitely looked there, he wasn't there yesterday." They found him, he was drained of blood. They found a dead snake right next to him, drained of blood. Then they found one of his shoes up a mile away, up in the top of a tree, one of his boots, and he was in his underwear. All his clothes was gone. So, real strange case. It's an open case by the FBI was involved in this one, and the family won't discuss it at all. And people like Butch Witkowski really exaggerate the case a lot. But Fred looked into it. He kind of thinks it's a drug case. I don't know. It's one of those really strange cases that is still open right now. It's a cold case. So I kind of created this, which people look at it and say, "Wow, that's kind of sinister as a Ouija board." And I said, "Well, I'll do a Giorgio here. It is, but it isn't. It isn't. It's not a Ouija, but it is a Ouija board. But what it is, I put on it the 3 religious symbols that believe in the Old Testament: Jewish, Muslim, and Christian. And the string theory of the unexplained is the name of the book I was telling you about that I wrote. And it's my kind of not mocking of the Ouija board, but if you believe in God, the dark side can't hurt you. That's what this means. You believe in the Old Testament, you believe in the power of God, and in Jesus in the New Testament, and the string theory is if you believe, you can't be harmed by the dark side. Not one person gets it when they look at it, so. Fred and I created 76 YouTube lectures that are on YouTube. And I'll get my website back up and you can view them. They're free and they're really cool. Half of them were filmed in my house in different rooms. My house is themed. And I took the website down because I was running for county commissioner. And of course they were bringing that stuff up. Well, he's got a Ouija board. He's a UFO nut. Do you know this? Do you know that? It's as horrible as can be, even at a small local election, just like what they do to Trump and Brett Kavanaugh and all of those guys. But this stuff's out there. I think they're really good. They're factual. Fred and I a lot of cases, just standing at the bar, talking, having a drink, and we talk about this stuff, and they're actually pretty good. And my books are only on Amazon now. So that's our presentation. I ran through it a little quick because of the technical difficulties. We can head out now, and we got the hors d'oeuvres. Thanks.